Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video, and today is our pricing video where we go over just the past week's sales of CGC 9.8 comic books, check out the prices, stay on top of those prices, and be educated and knowledgeable on all the latest prices. Because when you're buying CGC 9.8 books, I think the best thing you could do, a lot of people think the one thing you want to do is buy a book that's going to go up in price. But I think the best thing you could do really is just to buy the book that you want at the right price, a really good price. Because with CGC 9.8 books, once you get over kind of that $300 level, some books could sell for $300 and some books could sell for $500 depending on the time. So clearly you want to be in the camp of buying for $300, not for $500. So yeah, a lot of times I always say getting a better price is the most important thing when buying these CGC 9.8 comics, rather than, making sure you buy an issue that's going to go up in price or something like that, which is almost impossible to know because you can't predict the future, and anyone who says they can is lying. So yeah, it's really hard to do that. I would just totally recommend to kind of buy books that you love for the best price that you can get, and that's kind of what this exercise is all about. Every Sunday here we go on eBay and I do a little research and just look at some of those notable CGC 9.8 sales that happened in the past week. So all these prices are from eBay. They're in US dollars, and I will put a list in the description below of all the comics that we'll talk about here, just in case you're a bit confused during the listing. And if you haven't already, just make sure to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8 here. And still, in the early 2 months of this channel, haven't been going for 2 months yet. So just at this early time, need all the subscribers we can get. So I would super appreciate that if you did. Well, let's get into the list here. So first sale that caught my eye was an Uncanny X-Men 256. So that's the Jim Lee cover with the first new Psylock, which I think is a really cool X-Men issue if you're on a budget. I love the Jim Lee artwork, and getting that first new Psylock, which is still pretty cheap right now, so this one went for $72. I think, to get a first appearance of a cool villain, and there's a Mandarin appearance with a really cool cover, really cool artist Jim Lee, I think that's a pretty good one if you're on a budget. X-Men 256, $72 for first new Psylock. So one that really caught my eye that sold was an Amazing Spider-Man 301 in the CGC 9.8. And all these comics too we'll talk about, they're all CGC 9.8 white pages, unless otherwise noted. But all of them this week are white pages. But Amazing Spider-Man 301. This comic, I would say it's, basically like a secondary key, but because of how rare it is on the CGC census, it's pretty much become like a CGC census key, I would say. So obviously you got Amazing Spider-Man 300, which in general goes for about $2,000 US, and that's first Venom. That's the most expensive comic basically in the 1980s. So this Amazing Spider-Man 301, the issue after that, still has that classic McFarlane cover. There's no first appearance, there's a Silver Sable appearance, but this particular issue has become incredibly hard to find in a CGC 9.8. And, I don't know if it was because they were, 300 and 301 were so popular, they were so well traded in the 80s that, not very many of them survived in perfect 9.8 shape, but so an Amazing Spider-Man 301 did sell last week for $1,224 in the CGC 9.8. And this was one I was watching. It was from a seller that I really trust, and I was thinking of bidding, but I didn't bid. And personally, the reason I didn't bid is I think I want another ASM 300. I want to get another basically Amazing Spider-Man 300. So it's kind of an either or, like if I wasn't going to get an Amazing Spider-Man 300 in the future, I would maybe go after this one, but I think I want another 300 rather than a 301, just because it's a key issue, and I got a great feeling about Amazing Spider-Man 300 long term, that, something similar to kind of an Incredible Hulk 181 could happen to Amazing Spider-Man 300 in the CGC 9.8 eventually. So Amazing Spider-Man 301 still a really rare book on the CGC census. Yeah, it's very similar to Amazing Spider-Man 300, where the 9.8 ratio is about 6%. So 6% of all copies are 9.8, which is like the lowest ratio for an 80s comic that I personally know of, especially when you're talking about like key issues. So Amazing Spider-Man 301 sold for $1,224, a really rare one on the CGC census. A really good price for a Batman 423 came along. The cover on this one wasn't particularly centered, the best. I've seen better Batman 423s in the CGC 9.8, but still a great issue, classic Todd McFarlane cover. I have 2 of them. This one sold for $336, which I think is a pretty good price, even though this one had like weird pictures on it. The pictures were not looking really good. So that I think is a pretty low price for a Batman 423. If the pictures were a lot better, I think you probably would have got a better price on this one because it wasn't a new case. But $336 for a Batman 423 last week. An Incredible Hulk 449, really cool cover. First Thunderbolts. That one went for $296.97, and I really like this issue. A mid '90s issue. I really like the cover and everything about it pretty much, except, Thunderbolts, I'm just not the biggest fan of them, like, creatively. Just thinking of it, like, Thunderbolts as the name of a team. I just don't think that's a cool name, and it's like, oh, yeah, let's call them Thunderbolts. First thing that ever come to my mind. It's just, I don't know, not the hugest fan of the Thunderbolts as a team or, like, a cool team at all, really, but, I don't know, who knows, you never know. Marvel seems to be coming out with a lot of these more obscure characters and teams for movies and shows, so you never know. Really cool cover though, I do like the cover. I love this era of Hulk comics. So Hulk 449, First Thunderbolts went for $296.97. An Oblivion Song #1, which is a kind of a cool image comic that a lot of people are into right now. Oblivion Song #1 for CGC 9.8. It's a newer book, went for $69.95. And that's kind of a price that I've, really popular sort of newer books that aren't really like big keys usually go for about that like $60 to $70 range. And I'm thinking like an Immortal Hulk #1, first print, normal cover. That one's going for about, $60 to $70 in the CGC 9.8 as well. Another one here, The Boys #1, which is a really popular Amazon show right now. So I saw 2 of these sell in the CGC 9.8, The Boys #1. One was for $310 and another one was $314. I also noticed with this issue there's quite a few buy it nows where people are really trying to get top price for it because kind of trying to hook like a noob that really likes this Boys show on Amazon. And you're seeing buy it nows on like $500, $600 levels. So just watch out for that one. Personally, I don't ever recommend buying when there's like a really popular show or a really popular movie. You're almost better just to wait 6 months to a year. Revisit The Boys if you're still into it. I'm sure it'll be less than $300 right now. $310, $314 last week. A Savage She-Hulk #1, first appearance and origin of She-Hulk, went for $339.95. And that's been about $350 consistently in the past, a month of doing these pricing videos. And New Mutants 98 sold for, and yeah, it's still, this one was a nice new case, New Mutants 98, and it sold for $642.50 in the CGC 9.8. And yeah, that's sort of about the prices I'm seeing in the last few weeks here, but that has certainly come down from last year. Yeah, I know I paid about $850 American for my New Mutants 98 last year in an auction too, so it wasn't like, I paid up and I buy it now or anything, like it was just a normal auction. So even from last year, this is coming down about $150 to $200 apparently. And I did a video a couple days ago and I kind of explained that I think the rock bottom for New Mutants 98 will be about $550 to $600. There's a lot of like really iconic first appearance issues that go for about that price. So yeah, I think if New Mutants is going to go down more here, I think maybe another $50 to $100, but I think at that time you could come in if you can grab one for under $600. First Deadpool, so iconic. I think that would be a really good buy. But this one, it was a direct edition CGC 9.8 one for $642.50. So this is kind of a book of the moment here. What If number 10 in the CGC 9.8. That's the Jane Foster finds Thor's hammer. So that went for $1,414. And this was an auction. So it was just, I think there were like 40 or 50 bids on it. And yeah, What If number 10, CGC 9.8. I mean, this is a good example of how I would not recommend to buy comic books. A movie comes out, a hot show, whatever it might be, rumors, and the first week or two of the rumors, a lot of collectors, if they have these books, are going to try to throw them up for insane prices. And I mean, in general, a What If book that's really popular, has a really cool cover, and is CGC 9.8, like What If Wolverine Killed the Hulk, or there's a couple other What Ifs that are quite popular covers. Those go for about like $150 to $175. So for this one to go for $1,414 just because Jane Foster is going to be the new girl Thor in whatever Thor movie, I think is absolutely absurd. So I think this is a good example of basically how you don't want to buy comics. You don't want to like see the movie for the trailer, get so excited to go online and buy a book for $1,400. So yeah, that What If 10 did go for $1,414. It'll kind of be cool to see over the next year if any of those go for a lot less. I would suspect they will. A Daredevil 181, really popular Frank Miller Daredevil, and Death of Elektra, this one, and Daredevil 181 went for $15.50. $115.50. I think that's a pretty good deal. Certainly if you're a huge Frank Miller Daredevil fan, I know a lot of people are of that era. An Amazing Spider-Man 315, just like this one here. Nice one in the CGC 9.8 white pages I got. This one, for me too, is a book I purchased. Amazing Spider-Man 301, the whole McFarlane run from 301 to 329. And 315, 316, and 317 I sent to CGC. And 315 and 316 came back 9.8. And 317 is a 9.6. But that was cool because I just bought them in like a lot. So that was really cool. But Amazing Spider-Man 315, just like this one, went for $93 last week. Savage Dragon #1, which is kind of those cool early 90s original Image comics, went for $49.99. A Savage Dragon #1, which I think is a pretty cool book. I have one in like a raw copy from like when I was 6 or 10 years old, or 9 or 10 years old, or whatever it was. A Hulk 377, the first Professor Hulk, really popular green cover. I'm sure you're aware of. I believe it's a late 80s, maybe early 90s cover. Early 90s, I think. That one went for, where was it? I lost my place here. $129.99. And in general, that's a really popular issue. And in the CGC 9.8 sells quite well, right around that price. I would say that's a fair price for Hulk 377, $129.99. A Spider-Woman #1 from 1978. This is the original Spider-Woman #1. It's not the first appearance of Spider-Woman, but it gives you a new origin of Spider-Woman. That one went for $255. And, I mean, I think that's looking pretty good, especially, I know Spider-Gwen has so much kind of marketing dollars and promotion going on behind the comic right now, but, when the first Spider-Gwen book, which is made in 2014, and that one's going for about $350 to $400, I would say, sometimes even more. It's coming down a little bit, about $50 to $100 in price the last few months. I was looking to kind of compare it to this one, but this book being made in 1978, Spider-Woman #1 for $255. I think that's a pretty decent deal if you're like sort of in that mode of accumulating like female superheroes. So yeah, Spider-Man #1, Spider-Woman #1 from 1978 for $255. So two real cool modern Batman keys here that sold. A Batman 666, that's the first time Damian becomes Batman, Damian Wayne. One of those went for $139. I think that's a pretty good price for this. These are really popular. But I think, you know, a year or two ago they were going for quite, you know, pushing 200, these ones, which, you know, for new kind of, you know, I wouldn't say they're mega keys, they're just kind of new sort of secondary soft keys sort of. You know, I think getting up to 200 is a little bit too much, because then at $200 you can buy a lot of really cool like early 80s Batman keys. So yeah, about, you know, 125, you know, this one Batman 666 went for 139, and a Batman 655, which is the first cameo of Damian Wayne, a few issues before that one, went for 124.95 in this, both of them in the CGC 9.8. So yeah, about 125 I think is a fair price for Batman 655 or Batman 666 if those are, you're kind of looking at those. And I really like those issues as sort of modern Batman keys, really cool covers. And yeah, you always have that kind of outlier if Damian ever comes into like a new Batman movie or whatever it might be. I'm sure those issues will pretty much blow up. Marvel Secret Wars number 8, really popular issue. Origin of the Symbiote costume went for $249.99. This was a really nice copy too, I thought, in the new case. Really nice picture, perfectly centered for $250, not bad. X-Men 118. This, you know, Uncanny X-Men 2, 118. So we're getting back into the 70s here. First Mariko Yoshida. It was an auction too, looking really good. This one. This one is not really known as a key, but it does have a first appearance. The first Mariko Yoshida is not mentioned in the Overstreet price guide, so it's kind of not a key. But you still do get a first appearance. Really cool classic X-Men comic in the CGC 9.8, which are rare during this era. For $356, this one sold for. So I mean, I thought that was a pretty good deal. I have a X-Men 112, I believe it is, with kind of Magneto and Wolverine on the cover from that same era. And I purchased it for about that same price. Yeah, it was maybe a little bit less than that, but this one I think is probably a little bit more rare, but I think the cover on the one that I got is a little bit cooler. But yeah, not too bad for that era of X-Men, because they do get really rare in the CGC 9.8s, and there's a lot of like hardcore X-Men collectors of that era for CGC 9.8s. An Uncanny X-Men 282, which is the first Bishop, also sold. That was for $86.69. Another Uncanny X-Men. This is one that I sort of want. Uncanny X-Men 221, first Mr. Sinister. This is one I 100% would have bought already if it had a cooler cover. I wish it had like a Mr. Sinister cover. One I'm really looking for, you know, this one has kind of, there's been some auctions where I thought about buying, but I'm really picky with it because I don't really like, I love Mr. Sinister, but I don't really like the cover on it. So I'm always picky to like, I always want a perfectly centered one if I was going to buy it, and the sort of some of the auctions I've looked at weren't perfect for me. But another one I'm really looking for, because I'm a huge Mr. Sinister fan, is Uncanny X-Men 239, and that's the coolest kind of Mr. Sinister cover, I think. It's kind of got a purpley cover, Mr. Sinister right on the cover. Not a key issue, and that's one that I'm looking for in the CGC 9.8, and I haven't been able to find it just because it's not a key issue, and I don't think people CGC them very often. But I just want it because I think it's the coolest Mr. Sinister cover. But this one, X-Men 221, went for $215, and that I would say is, well, you know, I see those go kind of $215, $225, just around that price. And yeah, it's Uncanny X-Men 221. I really love Mr. Sinister. I wish there was just a cooler cover. I think that book would be over $300 if there was a cooler cover, because Mr. Sinister, I think, has a really good cult following. But yeah, it's just got that blue cover and not anything that catches my eye personally. Okay, last book here is a Batman key that I really am kind of zeroing in on, and this is one that I want, and it's kind of right up my alley because it's from my era. But Detective 583, which is the first Scarface and Ventriloquist, and one of those sold for $274.95. That's a Detective 583, and yeah, you know what? That's I have most Batman keys from the 80s, and this is one I don't have. And yeah, you know what? I think I'm really gonna add this kind of to my list, and I think it's about time too I do a video of sort of my want list of like maybe 4 or 5 comics that, you know, if they pop up in Canada on a good deal or a good auction, like, I'd buy them right away. So I think this one is pretty much on there at this point. I think, you know, being that I do have most Batman keys from the 80s, this would just almost complete my keys in a way. Although I don't have every one, but, you know, this one and sort of that Black Mask, first Black Mask I've talked about, I want that one as well. That would be on that list too. So Detective 583, first Scarface and Ventriloquist went for $274.95. Okay, that's it. We got through, there's about 20 issues there. And yeah, just going over, you know, these CGC 9.8 prices every week, I think is a really good exercise to just know the prices, the fair prices for all the books that you would want. And when you know that, you're gonna, you know, whenever you see an auction where someone's trying to get an inflated price, you're gonna immediately know, and you're not even gonna kind of give those auctions any attention. Because, yeah, what I've realized a lot with comic books is patience wins. Because, especially in the 80s and 90s books, if you're really patient, there's always going to be another CGC 9.8 coming up in whatever key issue you want, if you're patient. You know, sometimes you might have to wait a couple weeks or a month or whatever it might be. But if you kind of stay on top of this, the eBay searching, and yeah, wait a month or two, yeah, you're going to get a better price than those inflated buy it nows on whatever book it is that you want. But yeah, I love this exercise because, you know, staying on top of those prices, knowing the current market prices and being knowledgeable about the current market prices is the best thing you can do, I think, when you're buying CGC 9.8 books. Because, yeah, as I said, there's always a big sort of range between prices. Like a $300 book could be on eBay for a $500 buy it now price. And if that's the only book, if you're not educated enough, you go, oh, okay, well, that sounds okay, I'll just buy it for $500. Then another month, you wait another month, and one sells for $300 again. It always happens, trust me. If you follow these prices, it's really easy to kind of feel that these books are so rare and oh, I have to have it now. But yeah, if you're patient, it really helps when you're buying comic books, because there's always going to be that comic that you want. Another one coming up for like one of those 1 week auctions where you won't have to overpay and it's just kind of a fair market price, which is what you want to do when you're buying these comics. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed the video and got some information from the video. Yeah, I really enjoy these pricing videos actually for some reason. But thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. Yeah, lots of content coming every week, trying to do about 5 videos a week, and just being about 2 months into the channel, need all the subscribers we can get, so that would be so much appreciated if you could subscribe. But thanks for watching today, and I'll see you on the next video.